Hey everybody, Patricia here. So today I wanted to do this special video on what GameTrailers means to me, because when I first heard that GameTrailers had officially shut down after being around since 2002, I was just devastated. Because, you see, GameTrailers was what got me inspired to start Old School Lane. It's probably one of my, if not my biggest influence. Now, if anybody were to ask me on who my influences were when starting online content, some people would say it's James Rolfe and Cinemassacre. Some people would say Doug Walker and Channel Awesome. Some people would say maybe somebody from Normal Boots. For me, it was GameTrailers. It was Brandon Jones and Kyle Bosman, Daniel Bloodworth, and all the people who worked there over the years, just sitting around or posting videos, podcasts, and just going around and discussing about how they felt about video games and doing top 10 lists, doing reviews, and as well as doing their weekly show called GT Time. But what really got me influenced by GameTrailers was their retrospective videos. Their retrospective videos where they would discuss about video games such as Legend of Zelda, Resident Evil, Metroid, Final Fantasy, Castlevania. Every single one of them were so incredibly detailed, very informative, and you learn something new about these games, whether that you knew it or not. Anything about them, anything that GameTrailers did, it felt like a lot of hard work and passion was put into it, even though that it's as simple as just a video game. I wanted to do a huge retrospective on Nickelodeon. I wanted to research everything about Nickelodeon from its very beginnings all the way to when I first came up with the idea back in 2011, and I started the Nickelodeon Tribute in 2012. And I wanted to cover from Pinwheel to Legend of Korra and TMNT. But at the time, I didn't have the technology for it. I had a really old computer that was like 5 years old, but I used it so I can find a job because at the time I was unemployed. And I was very, very limited with my editing skills. I didn't know how to do videos back then. I didn't even have the software for it, so I was resorted to just doing it in blog form. Now, it's not like I'm not proud of all the blogs that I posted over the years and discussing about these Nickelodeon shows and movies and the top 10 lists and some of the questions that I would ask, and I would give my personal opinion on it. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do in the first place. I didn't want to do reviews. I didn't want to go on YouTube and just rant and yell and complain about how Nickelodeon sucks nowadays. I just felt like, what am I doing? What would I prove if I did that? I'd just be like everybody else. I wanted to be something different. I wanted to break away what people were doing, and I wanted to create something original and new. Just like what GameTrailers did, in which they posted videos on video games. And you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal about that? But you have to understand that back then, when they first started, there used to be pictures of the video games, and that was just it. That was all the information you had. I mean, you have like interviews every once in a while from the creators or the developers or whatever, but they would be like in text. But with GameTrailers, you got to see the video of it. You got to see like a little clip of what the trailer of the upcoming video game would look like. You got to see E3 being recorded live, and you didn't even have to travel all the way to California for that, and that was just amazing. And nowadays we kind of take it for granted, but GameTrailers were huge trendsetters back in its day, and their influences still carry on. It was because of GameTrailers I was introduced to Screw Attack, which is another major influence on me, which I'll definitely get to at some point because pretty soon they'll be celebrating their 10th anniversary. Then there was the later stuff, like they did Pop Facts, Pop Fiction, and Timeline. Pop Facts were interesting little facts about a video game. Pop Fiction was where they delved into like a video game rumor, and they would be discussing about if the rumor was true or not. They would do everything from hacking the video game, putting in passwords, maybe interviewing some of the developers and people who were behind the game to find out if it's true or not. Really, really fascinating. Some of my personal favorites from Pop Fiction were finding out information about the Legend of Zelda Fire Chant from Ocarina of Time, the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 music, the the Jack 2 glitch, about James McLeod being an F-Zero. It's just so many of them are so great. And for timeline they did the same thing that they did for their retrospectives, but the difference is that they did a chronological order. They did it for Legend of Zelda and they did it for Kingdom Hearts. They were going to do Metal Gear next, but unfortunately, it took a little bit longer than we were anticipating. They were supposed to come out in like either May or June of 2013, but I guess they wanted to wait until Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, which was understandable. But then eventually it never happened because then they would announce that. So yeah, I mean, there is just so many things that I can talk about with GameTrailers. They've paved the way for so many people. With Screw Attack and the Angry Video Game Nerd, you wouldn't even know who they were if it wasn't for GameTrailers. And a lot of the people who got their inspirations from GameTrailers, like myself, Derek Alexander, the Happy Video Game Nerd, also got his inspirations from GameTrailers. Armin from Comic Book Cast also got his inspirations from GameTrailers. And just so many people. I know that there's like a lot of websites or video channels or whatever that owe a lot to GameTrailers for what they did. They paved the way for what presenting video game news would be all about. And they were also responsible for me wanting to get started with my stuff. I mean, recently, if you've noticed, if you follow the Nickelodeon Slimecast podcast YouTube channel, I started posting news, and I did that because GT Time, which was their weekly podcast / video series where they would discuss about the latest news, and they would be talking about how they felt about it. They would be discussing about some behind the scenes things that maybe we didn't know about. They were just really honest about how they felt about things. They weren't hiding anything back. They just gave it to you straightforward. And that's what I really respect about GameTrailers. They weren't afraid about what, everybody was going to say to them if they didn't agree with them. They weren't bought out by any company to give a good review to a bad video game. That's not what GameTrailers was. Great GameTrailers, they were very respectable, and they just said how they felt, and they weren't afraid of anything about it.
If they follow the trend of what they did last year, it's like, here's all the stuff we're going to talk about. Hi, we're Bethesda. Let's talk about the things we were going to talk about. Look at them. Aren't they great? Have a funny 3. Like, I'd be surprised if they announced.
And
well, I was
then they're
surprised
just like,
when
whoosh, new crazy thing that changes everything.
When Overwatch was
but the people look terrible.
announced, I was like, don't listen to me. Never mind.
Yeah.
Anything I said about BlizzCon this year, I was wrong.
Yeah. Nobody expected Overwatch. That was so fun. It came right after they announced that they canceled Titan.
Oh, yeah, that was a fun time.
That series of events, they set everybody up so well. Gosh, that's how you do it.
That's kind of like how Sony did it, like with the fake out Final Fantasy VII thing. They knew, they knew what they were doing for sure.
I don't think that was as in sync as, I think that was just kind of a happy accident that someone saw coming and was like, oh, wait, there we go. Whereas, Blizzard's very smart.
So yeah, I'm really devastated when I heard the news about when GameTrailers was shutting down. I didn't think of it at first, but then when I realized about what GameTrailers did for me, being a content creator, it just kind of like crashed down on me. It felt like a part of me was gone when I found out that GameTrailers was going away. And it's just an absolute shame because Brandon, Kyle, Daniel, everybody who's been involved with GameTrailers have been wonderful. They've been informative. They've been talented with their presentations. They just did everything so well, and I wish them the best of luck wherever they are. And if any of the guys at GameTrailers are watching, I just want to thank you so much for being an inspiration for me, as well as being an inspiration for everybody who says that they've been inspired by you. I know that you are gone, but you will never, ever be forgotten.